So why is there's thousands of people in a crowd and not one person? I've not heard one mainstream media person say, "Oh my Lord, we're going to have a big COVID problem."
That's
here.
right. That's, again, you're just making my case, right? Exactly the same thing. And actually, when you start looking at these governmental orders and certain states, you start seeing the hypocrisy in their orders. Restaurants will open up to 50%. Because it's in the church, in the Bible Belt, we're going to open up churches. We were going to shut down any meetings, but we're going to open up the churches because we don't want to be sued by the churches. But the restaurants can only be at 50% capacity. And what about conferences and meetings? Oh, wait a second. Those that were limited to 50 people in a ballroom that's designed for 1,000, that 50 people, instead of going to 50% capacity, no, we're going to reduce that to 10 people. Because these viruses are so smart, they know that churches, they're not going to go into. Restaurants, they're only going to have 50% issues with. And public conferences, oh, wait a second, that's wide open. I mean, it's so idiotic. There's no science. In fact, the more that I've said that there's no science, the new orders that are coming out are even more stupid. They're just stupidity on top of stupidity. And all people have to do is just read them and say, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. Ask the question, how can a virus know not to go into a church, but knows that in a meeting it's going to be dangerous? How is it that in Walmart, you don't have to worry about the virus, but in Costco, you got to worry about the virus? I mean, people just have to start asking those questions.
So do you ever get shamed like without having a mask?
So
I always see people looking at me, but they've never said anything to me. But again, I'm not going a lot of places.
Well, we were on a plane and coming from Charlotte to Austin for to Dallas, for the Daystar filming. And we were in the business class section, and the flight attendant came up and she says, she had a mask on, and she says, "I'm sorry, but," and she pointed behind her, "we have somebody that's complaining that you're wearing a face mask." And my response was much louder. I mean, I raised my octave to make sure that everybody in first class could hear me. And I said, well, her stupidity is not my issue. And she was like, "Oh, I just want to know. That's fine. No problem. Thank you very much, sir. And, would you like a drink?" And that type of thing. And that was it. I mean, public shaming is only based upon the fact that if you're going to allow yourself to be embarrassed. If somebody says that you're standing up for your rights, how dare you stand up for your rights and your child's right? You should be ashamed. I'm going to say, come into my field. Come into my personal space. That's a battle cry to me. So social shaming only works if you really don't know what the truth is. If you know what the truth is and somebody tries to shame you, if you know you're dealing with a dumbass and the dumbass comes and says, "Hey, why are you so stupid?" You're going to call that dumbass out, right?
Yeah.
Am I right? I mean,
yeah.
My point is that social shaming only works if a person is not empowered with knowledge. And that's why the greatest weapon that we can get is becoming empowered with knowledge. Because once you know how the body works, once you know the basic premise of how viruses work, once you understand the idiocy and the hypocrisy of everything that they're putting out there, it's all hypocritical. It's all contradicting itself. If you start looking at how Fauci says no face mask is necessary, now he's wearing a face mask, now the WHO is backing away from the face mask issue, then you have to ask this question. Now, that doesn't mean that every single person is going to be watching the media and catching exactly what they're saying. If you start seeing how the media says, "Oh, President, why are you not wearing a face mask?" and you're setting the wrong precedents for the public, and then the cameras stop rolling, they take off their own face masks and they're not worried about it, that's what people should be looking at. So all truths go through three phases. First is ridicule. It's ridiculed. It's ridiculed. It's ridiculed. You're this, you're that, you're embarrassment. Second, it's violent opposition. You think some of these race riots are really because of that violent opposition? Because people have been cooped up in their homes and they're scared, they're pissed off, and now they're realizing what the truth is, and they're coming out and they're just waiting to just express their anger. Sure, there's a racial component to it, but a lot of the racial components that I've seen black people stand up and say this is all garbage. And they're talking about Black Lives Matter. What are you talking about? Black Lives Matter. All lives matter. I've heard many people that are black or people, African Americans, that have come out and said that. So there's something else undermining that, a stressor, something else that's the impetus behind it, the trigger behind it. And then on top of that, you start looking at the way, if you want to, I don't want to talk about politics here, but if you want to start looking at the way this has all gone down the pipeline, it's almost like the Russian collusion didn't work. Then the Ukrainian collusion didn't work. Then the impeachment didn't work. Then COVID didn't work. Now they're trying rights. My question is, what's going to come next? What's the next thing they're going to try? Is that the second wave of COVID that they've been talking about, or is it something else? They're trying to do something. I think the COVID-19 was a perfect way for them to try to get voting by mail, which we know is riddled with fraudulent votes. We saw that in 2016. And of course, one side will say, no, that's not true. And, there weren't that many people that were dead that died 50 years ago that were voting, or people, to me, it's like, why is this such an issue with voting? If you got a driver's license, then, you have to have a driver's license to go be able to drive a car. And people say, well, that's putting a requirement on it. Okay, well, fine, then go get a state ID. You don't have to have a requirement for state ID. If you don't have a state ID, if you can't get a state ID, then you shouldn't be able to vote. End of story. If people have stood in line to vote, and they're saying that that's a risk, well, guess what? There are millions of Americans that have died for the right for you to stand in line to vote. So if they risked their lives and gave their lives for the country so that you can vote, then the least damn thing you can do is get your ass up and go and vote in a freaking poll.
Yeah, that's the biggest change people can make. Because believe it or not, a lot of people don't vote at all.
Well, exactly.
And then they bitch about who's running shit. And what I said the other day on social media was, people are calling these people our leaders, and it's like, dude, they're not our leaders. They're elected representatives. They're there simply to be our spokesperson.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So I don't look at them as leadership. I don't think they're smarter than us. Now, they might have more intel than us, but then who's that intel coming from? And is it credible? Because a lot of times people will think, oh, well, this person said it, so that must be credible. Well, where'd this person hear it? Where's this knowledge? And once you have that knowledge, that's when you do start to feel a little more empowered and less victimized.
That's right.
Like again, when that whole Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, I keep hearing all this. If you break it down, first of all, and I don't want to get into this because we got to hit that party, but when someone says all lives matter, when someone says Black Lives Matter, it's like Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. Now, again, I get it. Of course, all lives matter. But all lives matter is only possible if Black Lives Matter. So if I were to say Black Lives Matter, say okay, because it's true. Black lives do matter. Well, all lives matter. Nobody said they didn't. Why? Because I say Black Lives Matter, you feel like you got to say all lives matter. That's like if
but
I said,
most people that are saying that I've heard, they're black people that are saying that.
Yeah, but they don't get it either. But the point I'm making is, like, I could say save the whales because there's fucking whales getting harpooned off my deck. And I'm like, save the whales. That doesn't mean I say fuck all the other fish. It's just like, save the fucking whales. What about all the other fucking fish? Fuck, I didn't see them getting harpooned, motherfucker. Like, I'm talking about whales right now. So when someone says Black Lives Matter, and I used to be the one that would say, fuck you, all lives matter. But then I realized by me saying that, there was a little tiny bit of racism in there. Why? Not racism as most people would define it, but why? Well, because when you say Black Lives Matter, why do I want to defend it? Well, everybody's life matters, which I believe. Because when it boils down to it, all lives matter. But Black Lives Matter isn't about people dying. This is just my opinion. It's about ending racism of any kind. Hispanic, Black, Asian, it doesn't matter. However, when someone says Black Lives Matter, now all I hear is end racism. And I say, I agree. I don't argue it anymore. Because guess what? Black lives matter. And for all lives to matter, Black Lives Matter has to be true. You can't have all lives matter if black ones don't.
I agree with you there.
So when someone says Black Lives Matter, I just say, you're exactly right. They do. And I don't say anymore because guess what? To me, that means end fucking racism.
Well, let me tell you where we disagree. The problem is that the media is not and has never told the truth. The same issue with COVID is right here with the racism.
Sure.
Why did they not talk about during these riots? Why did they not show when police officers took a knee and the crowd came together with police officers and they hugged because the police officers were in solidarity with the community that was protesting because they agreed what happened with that individual with Floyd was not right. Why is the media not covering that? Why is the media not covering where one white police officer gets separated from the rest of the crowd and there are 4 black men that surround the police officer with their backs protecting him from the onslaught. Why didn't the media cover those type of stories? Why is the media talking about Black Lives Matter and this violence and that violence? Why is the media not talking about the truckloads of bricks and concrete blocks that are being trucked into areas where there's no construction so that people can commit these violent crimes? Why are they not talking about where people have said that I was paid to protest, I went to George Soros' website and I typed in my information and I get a check made from him, signed with his signature stamp? Why are they not talking about that stuff? So this Black Lives Matter is another way of us dividing us by showing black versus white. And that's why I say Black Lives Matter. All lives matter, and we need to understand that this is not about black or white. This isn't about Democrat or Republican. This isn't about Jew versus Muslim. This isn't about men against women. It's old versus young, fat against skinny. It's affecting us all, and the media is a culprit. That's one reason the petition that we started, that I have asked and been talking to the White House about, that we need to hold mainstream media not just financially responsible, but criminally responsible, because they're not complicit with this. I say that those bastards are the ones that are creating these problems. We know they're puppet masters that are pulling their strings, but you know what? As soon as you start holding the owners of the companies and the stockholders responsible, things will change. They have to be held responsible. That you go out there and you say something wrong that causes somebody to be harmed, then you need to be held criminally responsible. How many children have been sexually abused since this COVID-19 started because people were kept in their homes because of the isolation? How many domestic violence cases have occurred because people were kept in their homes? How many suicides have occurred? How many people have died in their homes because they were afraid that if they went to the hospital, they would get COVID-19? How many people have died from waiting for elective procedures but not going to the hospital because they knew that the system was overtaxed? Okay, all those deaths, nobody's talking about those, and they dwarf the number of people, that so-called people that died from COVID-19. They're 2, 3, 4, 10 times more. I have no idea what the numbers are, but they're huge numbers. Nobody's talking about that. Who's responsible for that? The media.
Well, you said, here's where we disagree. I agree with all that.
No, what I meant was we disagree because when, to me, the aspect of, as soon as you start saying Black Lives Matter, now to me, that's racism, because you're saying that black lives are different than other lives. And I'm saying there is no difference in life. Life is life. In fact, some of the people that I follow, they're saying the exact same thing. They're the ones that, and they're in the African-American community. They're the first ones to say it. And to me, if you see a difference in color, to me, that's racism. My son, I'll just tell you something funny. My son tells me some jokes that I have told him, I said, you can't tell those kind of jokes because those are really, I mean, they're funny, but those are racially motivated jokes, right? And he's so funny. But I realized he literally does not see the difference in color. His first girlfriend, she was black. So to him, he doesn't see the difference. So I realized that my son telling those kind of jokes, he's not particular about any race. I mean, he'll tell black jokes, he tells Jewish jokes. He asked me, he goes, Dad, we came back from the Middle East. He goes, Dad, why is it that you can, he's such a funny kid. His name's Rahan. He's 15. He goes, Dad, why is it that you can sit in an airport and say Jesus Christ and nobody cares, but you say Allahu Akbar and they dive on you as a terrorist, because Allahu Akbar is a call to prayer, right? But the connotation from the mainstream media is when you say Allahu Akbar, there's going to be a bomb that's going to go off. So he has a very.
I'd rather hear on an airplane. I'd rather hear someone yell Jesus Christ and Allahu Akbar, because as soon as someone says that, you think, oh my God, there's going to be.
But that's the point. That's a racial comment, right?
Totally.
And that was his question. I mean, he was being funny about it. So he told me, he goes, Dad, he had some of the stuff, some of the ethnic garb that they wear in the Middle East, in Palestine, and so he wanted to go. He wanted to go to a Walmart with his thing on, with the turban and everything on, sunglasses on, and said that I want to buy all the guns in the Walmart right now. I mean, his sense of humor is, very advanced, very evolved, and somewhat on the cutting edge. But that's the whole point, that you can say Jesus Christ, and then you say Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar is, you know what the literal translation of Allahu Akbar in Arabic is? God is great. Allahu Akbar. God is great. So you can say God is great in English, nobody's going to say anything, but you say it in Arabic, in a different language. And remember, there are Christians, Muslims, and Jews that speak Arabic because that's their native tongue. You say that, it's not considered. I mean, that's the same thing. It's a racially motivated or ethnicity motivated way of separating, and it's like racism, but it's accentuating that difference between people. And to me, that's where the problem is. We should not be accentuating the difference between any race, ethnicity, religion, creed. We should be coming together and understanding that when a life is taken, it's taken, and that should be stopped. Whether it's black or white, it doesn't make any difference. And
True.
that's the big thing.
True. Most people don't know, but Ana Kalemi Arabi, Shwoya.
Okay, I'm impressed.
Shwoya.
Shwoya.
Marathi Sit, no, Ana Marathi Masri.
So my Arabic is a lot worse than yours. I read the Quranic Arabic.
Oh.
So I speak Urdu, which is a mixture of Arabic and Farsi. So I understand some of what you said.
Farsi, all I know is Khoda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz, yeah.
Which
Means God be with you, as God watch over you. It's a greeting or a goodbye.
well, to what you just said though, I agree, except for, again, I don't see a lot of white people being, does it exist? Yes, dude, there are racist people against white people, more and more so lately, by the way. So in 400 years, it might be the Caucasian that everybody shits on, and that's the racism. But currently in my life, I haven't really seen racism against white people.
Yeah,
I've seen
and
racism. I've seen racism against Hispanics. I've seen black. I've seen Arabic.
Believe me,
I've seen all kinds.
I've been a victim of racism, but I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist. Don't get me wrong.
I know, but you said there's no difference between white people, black people. There is a difference.
No. What I'm saying is there shouldn't be a difference in the loss of life between anything. That's what I'm saying.
But
I'm not saying that people don't treat people differently because of the color. That's not tolerable. And I totally agree. In fact, the Hodge brothers, they're two guys that are both ex-Marines, and I was just watching a video of them with one of our Uber drivers, who was recognized me, and we were talking, and then he talked to me about the Hodge brothers, and I said I didn't know who they were, so he played a segment, and they're two black brothers, twins.
Yeah, I've seen them.
And so they were talking about this.
They say all lives matter.
Exactly, and they explained why. They said that if you see me walking down the street with a sign that says Black Lives Matter, it's because somebody's holding a gun to my head.
Well, because they're saying what I would consider common sense. In other words, when I used to say it, because a couple of years ago there was a Black Lives Matter, I forget what happened, but something happened, and we've been saying it for a long time. Not we, but people. And what's changed? Nothing. So before, when someone said Black Lives Matter, I'd always say, well, all lives matter, and they'd say, no, Black Lives Matter, and I'd say, well, so does everybody else's, because exactly what those two guys were saying. Mm-hmm. I agree with them. So again, I'm not saying this group, the BLM.
I think you're saying that racism exists, and I agree with you.
I'm saying that racism should stop.
Absolutely.
Now, Black Lives Matter to me is not a movement. It's not a group. As soon as you say the group, I'm not for the group.
No, it's all an illusion.
I know, but I'm not for the group. I'm talking about individuals. When someone makes the statement, Black Lives Matter, I cannot disagree. Why? Because they do.
But you're jumping into an area that is people are being driven into that area to create incite.
Oh, sure.
That it's because the people that truly care about this issue, they're the ones who are saying that all lives matter. The people that should be concerned, the black community the majority of the black community is talking about that all lives matter. Who is pushing this agenda? It's
Soros.
Exactly. So you got the people that are saying,
state.
if you don't know who to vote for, then you're not black. And now you got all these black politicians saying that Biden thinks that I'm not black. I mean, how can you somebody that's a racist remark?
Totally.
So these are the types of things we got to be careful.
And by the way, Biden just clinched the Democratic nomination.
Wow, they clinched it, huh?
Clinched it.
I bet you that's going to change, because if that's the best they got to
He's
offer,
losing.
Yeah,
dude, Trump's going to win it all day again. Do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know why you hear people saying, "Oh, Trump, he's doing it." Like, I'm pretty sure the majority of the world knows that Trump is not doing this.
Oh, of course. I mean, you got people from Australia that are broadcasting, and from the UK, from all over the world. I've seen broadcasts coming in, and I've never heard so many people that were Democrats, that have always been Democrats, that I thought would die as Democrats, saying, I am not voting for Biden. I'm voting for Trump. I have the people that produced the Plandemic show when we were there. Their entire crew is hardcore Democrats in Ventura County. Every one of them were voting for Trump. I was shocked. I have not ever heard of so many people that were on one party defecting to the other party. And again, I've never considered myself a Republican or a Democrat. I never have. I voted for the first Bush, George W. Bush, the first time. I was on part of his medical task force, the heavy metal task force that he assigned 12 doctors. I met with him. I didn't vote for him the second time. My parents thought, my mom thought I was crazy. My sister thought I was crazy that I voted for Bush the first time. I didn't vote for him the second time. When Obama came, I voted for him the first time. My whole family thought that I'd been reborn, and they were all happy that I was finally a Democrat. I didn't vote for Obama the second time. When it came down to Hillary and Donald Trump, I voted for Rand Paul in the primaries. When Donald Trump won the primary, I moved out of the United States. Literally, I moved out. You know that I have a residency in a different country. I moved out because I thought Hillary was going to take over, and that was it. Then when I realized that Donald Trump had won, I didn't vote for anybody in the last presidential cycle. I'm definitely voting for Donald Trump this presidency. He's the first one that on the second term, because I voted one way, then I voted the other way. With Bush, with Obama, but Donald Trump, this will be my first time voting for him, and I'm not ashamed of it at all. I don't care what you think about him as an individual. He has done more for the country than any president that I can think of up until, if you go back, up until Reagan. It was Reagan was the last person that spoke the truth, and before that was John F. Kennedy. And what happened with John F. Kennedy? They assassinated him. What happened to Reagan? He came out talking about getting the dollar off the, basically putting the dollar back on the gold reserve. What happened to him within 24 hours of him talking about that? That's when they tried to assassinate him. Remember when he was shot with the 22 rounds?
Yeah, see, that's the whole thing that's scary, man. It's